Hello, Jacquie Edwards here. Welcome to our live video. Today we're going to be talking about HMO licensing and planning permission. But first, just wanted to say, look at what a lovely day it is here today. I mean, it is February and I'm able to be outside. But also, so I'm just popping outside today because the cleaners are at the house right now, so it's a bit messy and noisy in there. And also because I've got a brand new phone, so I wanted to try out my new phone. Unfortunately, I really liked my old phone, but the camera died, and because I'm going on holiday at the end of this week, I needed to make sure I had a good camera. So let's test this out. So talking about HMO licensing and planning. Now, these are very relevant whether you're doing rent to rent or whether you're just investing and looking to buy HMO properties. Now, this is where people get very, very confused when they're getting started between kind of the HMO licensing process and the planning permission process. Now, you'll also probably have heard of Article 4, which is basically a planning permission. So if we go back to the very beginning, you've got licensing and you've got planning. They're two completely different branches in the council. They're two different people that just don't talk to each other. They're two different things that you may or may not have to apply for, but they are completely separate of each other. So you might have to get a license, but not planning permission. You might have to get planning permission, but not a license. So remember, they are two completely separate areas. First of all, for licensing, there are new rules generally across the UK with anything with 5 or more tenants needs to have an HMO license. Now, this is mandatory across the UK. Now, just to make it even more complicated, your council can set its own rules. So they can make their rules more strict than the kind of national HMO licensing rules. So for instance, I'm based in Oxford, is where most of our investments are. And in Oxford, anything with 3 or more people sharing needs to have an HMO license. And there's different room size requirements, so you need to check what's relevant in your specific area for your specific council that you're working on. But generally, nationwide, 5 or more people needs a license, but you may need one a bit sooner depending on your council. So that's licensing. Now, if we look at planning permission, this is where kind of Article 4 generally comes in. So planning permission, it's complicated. So planning permission, most normal residential family homes are C3 category. Now, an HMO with sharers in it is a C4 category. In most of the UK, to go from C3 to C4 is permitted development and you don't need planning permission. So that's to go from a family home of C3 to a HMO of C4 is no planning permission needed, it's permitted development. But some councils, when maybe there's too many HMOs or they think there's too many HMOs or they want to put some other restrictions in place, they will implement an Article 4 directive related to HMOs. And that will mean that they will remove the permitted development rights to go from C3 to C4 so that you have to apply for planning permission. Again, each local council can set their rules for it. So some might be 5 people, some might be 4 tenants, some might be 6 tenants, some might be 3 tenants living in the property. So you'll have to check your specific council's rules. Again, in Oxford, they're quite strict. It's anything with 3 or more people living in it needs to have planning permission, which sounds very similar to the 3 or more people that you need a license. But remember, planning and licensing are always very, very different. They're 2 different applications. So there are some councils I know that you need to have planning permission for 5 or more people, so they've got an Article 4 directive in, but you didn't have to have, so you had to have planning permission for 3 or more people, but you didn't have to have a license until you had 5 people. So again, just remember they are different. So that's for up to 6 tenants is your C4 planning category. Now, if you want to have more than 6 tenants in your HMO, that's a whole nother planning category called sui generis, and that is always needs planning permission. So if you're going to have 7 tenants or more in your property, you will need to get planning permission for that, and it's a specific category called sui generis, and you need to fill out a full planning application. So that is basically it in a nutshell. If you are doing rent to rent, these all apply to you as well. Now, sometimes your property owner might have taken care of everything already, which is why I generally like to start with a property that already has an HMO license, because then if I'm in an Article 4 area, I know it's already got all the planning permission it needs. It's got the license. I don't have to worry about it. But if you want to start from scratch, you will need to know these rules. Your property will need to come under this, even though it's a rent-to-rent property. Legally, it still needs to meet all of the planning and licensing requirements. Now, who has the license in their name? That depends on which you negotiate with the landlord. Some of my properties I'm the license holder, some of my properties the landlord's the license holder. It's whatever works for the both of you. So, don't get too caught up in that in the beginning. Planning permission, it can take ages and ages to apply for. So if you need to apply for that for your property, again, whether you're doing HMOs or rent to rent, you'll want to make sure that that's pretty sure you're going to get it. It's going to be a minimum of 8 weeks to do that planning application. And you cannot convert the property into that HMO until you've got the planning permission. That's where it's a little bit different from your licensing, because with licensing, pretty much every council I know of, maybe there are some that's not, so again, check your local council, but pretty much every council I know of, as long as you've applied for your HMO license, you can start using the property as an HMO. So that makes it a little simpler. So if it doesn't already have the HMO license, you don't have to worry too much. You submit the application, you can start using it as an HMO, the council will come and inspect, and they pretty much give everybody a license. So unless you're not considered a fit manager for an HMO, so you've got some serious crimes in your background, you will be given that HMO license. It will, if there's anything that needs changing in the house, they'll just have conditions on it. So it'll say, your license is valid, but in the next 3 months, you have to add fire doors here and here and put a smoke alarm in, or something like that. So again, HMO licensing is a lot easier. Don't worry too much about it. Pretty much everybody gets a license as long as you've paid the council's fee. Whereas planning permission, again, minimum 8 weeks. Oftentimes it will take longer. Councils are very, very backed up, and you're not guaranteed that you're going to get it. All of your neighbors will have input into it. It will depend, especially with an Article 4 area. Most councils have a reason for implementing that. So they will, if there's too many HMOs already in the area or whatever guidelines they've put in to monitor, they'll be looking for that. So you'll have to do your research first. Now, those are the basics. Key things as a recap to remember: licensing and planning are two completely different things. So licensing and Article 4, two completely different things, two branches in the councils, two separate applications. So you need to do them separately. Licensing will be set by your council. Normally across the UK, it's 5 people in-house need a license. It can be less depending on your council. In planning permission, again, set by your council. Most places you've got permitted development to turn a residential home into a HMO up to 6 people. But some places, if they've got Article 4, you will need to apply for full planning permission to go to C4. If you have 7 or more people, sui generis always needs planning permission. So hopefully that helped clear it up a little bit. Again, if you need more details, more information, come and follow me. I've got loads of videos on YouTube. Follow me on my Facebook page and check out my website, renttorentacademy.co.uk. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again next time.